AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Our host brings you the leading minds in AI, sharing their story, their success, and their advice. Focusing on fast-tracking you to the top, AI in Action cuts through the hype to help you kickstart your data science career. To listen to the latest AI in Action podcast, head over to www.alldus.com/podcast or subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Podcasts.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Brian Ray. Brian is the Global Data Science Lead for Maven Wave Partners. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. I should also say Brian is Managing Director too, so make sure we get that all in the title. Brian, let's start with a background of yourself. How you first got involved in technology, what sparked your interest, and then talk us through some of the roles you've held along the way, taking us up to your current position here at Maven Wave.
Yeah, you bet. So I started technology 20 some years ago in direct marketing. And back then they called it like a data processing role and digital imaging. We're big into feeding giant laser printers with languages like Postgres. That's why I started getting really into Python. I used Python to generate PostScript. From there, I got more into the data side and started branching out into consulting. And I found that a lot of our clients were in the life care, health sciences area. So I started doing a lot of engineering around the sciences, and this is before ML ops, or that term ever came to be. So I started working with companies like Abbott and Cerner and just a plethora of different companies, assisting a lot of the data scientists, what they eventually called data scientists, in operationalizing operations, as well as helping with latency problems, all sorts of engagements around that space. And it bubbled up into, I eventually did go to school for computer science while I was consulting and raising a family in Chicago. It wasn't until recently, I'm in LA now. Like you said, I'm managing partner at a global data science lead at Maven Wave Partners. We're a global consulting firm for cloud, very highly associated with Google most of the time. Service partners of the year last 3 years for Google. And the way I brand myself, JP, is I tell people I'm a data scientist. I call myself a data scientist who happens to be the global's data science lead. That's the way I see it. Is I love to get my hands dirty. I still write a lot of models myself. I have about 160 person team that I in some way manage to deliver data science to everywhere, all over the globe. Really tight partners with the Google ecosystem as well as the open source world. Been involved with Python for 16 years or so. I founded the Chicago Python user group in 2003 along with a couple other people, and I operated, it and ran it for 13 years or so. So a lot of people in Chicago know me for Python, and I still love it. I still love the language. I don't lead the group anymore.
Thank you for that really detailed background, and it helps paint a very clear picture of your journey. Before moving on to Maven Wave and some use cases and getting some detail around the relationship with Google, we first got to start with how you were able to balance such a senior leadership role while still being hands-on, because that seems to be the ultimate challenge that people are often faced with the crossroads. But you've somehow been able to stay in the trenches while having a senior leadership role. So talk us through that, how you've been able to get that balance right.
Well, for one thing is I'm involved oftentimes with pre-sale and visioning and scoping, and of course, staffing for delivery. What I've been doing more times than not, I've been adding a couple hours for myself, either billable or I give them away to key accounts that align with some interests of my own personal interests. And by doing so, I stop in and help work on problems. I also advise some senior data scientists on not just the technical aspects of it, but also about how to tell the digital story, about how to go from a use case and the cloud, or maybe on-premise and moving data science to the cloud, and how to develop those use cases and think creatively out of the box, and how to tell that story of walking through and delivering data science, and also aspects like governance. I love to talk about governance and bias in models. I also like to see models put in production. So I like to see, someone comes up with a good solution and they put it in production. They make it available for human in the loop, to democratize it. And I think there's a lot of value in correctly executing AI and machine learning on many levels throughout almost any organization.
So the key thing that stood out there was you still have the passion for it. You still want to be involved in all aspects, and you clearly enjoy it. You wouldn't do it at this stage of your career otherwise.
Well, until they could tell me to go away, which happens. Yeah. So if they say, Brian, we don't want you to, you're driving us nuts, and very pedantic. But I like being involved with it, and I like to be involved with community. I think that science is no longer developed in the basement somewhere with some genius. I think it's done collaboratively. I believe in the collaboration. I believe in transparency. I believe that the many of us make things greater versus the few. So I make it a lifestyle choice, and I work, endlessly, of course, but I do it with great passion and great enjoyment. And I have a podcast too, AIpodcast.com. Of course, I don't want to cross-pollinate too much, but
not at all. We want everyone listening to this to immediately go check you guys out. You yourself and Don Shu are involved, right?
That's correct. And Don is a longtime friend of mine. So I manage data science at Deloitte North America under the innovation sector, at least, for about 6 years or so before I joined Maven Wave over a year ago. And when I was at Deloitte, I was, also advising very early on other startups. One was Spot Hero, which is a parking spot locator. And I met Don, who was also advising Spot Hero very early on. It was just the two founders. And we were both advising them on two different aspects. And we met each other. We really hit off. We became great friends. And he lives up in Seattle now. I'm in LA. And we try to keep in contact by our weekly podcast. So that's how we connected with you, JP. So Don's great at knowing the network and knowing the best people in the industry. And he says, you are one of the best people in the industry, and I should know this person, and we should have him on our podcast. And I don't argue with Don. And I said, yes, Don, we'll do it. And sure enough, we had you on our podcast, and it's a great addition.
Well, I'm humbled. Thank you so much. So let's turn to Maven Wave. Okay. Management consulting, cloud solutions. The labels, headings thrown around a lot, but you guys have found a sweet spot and are doing some amazing things. The fact that you have such an incredible partnership with Google really speaks volumes. Mm-hmm. Can you give us some insight into what it's like to be part of the Maven Wave team? Some of the projects you're working on and the impact you guys are having for clients.
I mean, even if you look at for us online, you're going to hear people mention terms like the people, the culture. And it's absolutely true. Maven Wave has one of the strongest internal cultures ever, and we work, really closely with each other. I think that from a data science perspective, what we've really learned is that we can do these exciting engagements, but we can also learn something from everyone and everything, and we can also bring that learnings back home. So we've been developing a lot of internal conversations about how to share what our learnings are. On a regular basis, so that we have center of excellences around vision, and we do a lot of natural language processing now, and we do a lot of deep learning, and we've been getting really under the hood of Kubeflow and TFX lately. So, the idea of Maven Wave is that we have access to some of the greatest technology ever built, and we have the access to people with the real problems. There's a great variety of problems that they have. But yet we have the teamwork and the passion and the focus to walk someone through as a team, to define better that problem and to develop technology to solve that problem the best way possible, and to walk away from it and be proud of it and say, well, this is another qualification of why we did it. But here's the interesting thing, JP. We also work with people who already have data science teams, already have engineering teams. And it's more of a teach to fish thing, is they just maybe want to be enabled on the cloud. They just want to know, we know there's great things under AI platform or GCP. We know Google's doing great things for themselves. We know they're inventors of TensorFlow. And we know that they have some great technology. Just make it available for us, Brian. Make it available so that my team and we can use it. And then we do engagements just like that. We'll do it hybrid. We'll sit right next to them, show them the best way, accelerate them, and then we are gone to our next engagement, and they're happy. And they usually call us back for some small tasks, but that's our engagement model.
So it sounds like a partnership rather than an implementation and move on. The fact that you guys keep a continued dialogue shows that the value that you're adding. So the Google partnership, how did that come about, and what does it mean to achieve that notoriety?
So the partnership happened from one of the founders, over a decade ago, where a friend of theirs was going to an interview to work at Google, and they brought with them the partner to the interview. So they actually brought another person. It's like me walking into an interview with you, JP, and bringing somebody else. So oddly, he just shows up with this other person. He says, why is this person here? And he says, well, I cannot do my job of what you're asking me to do without a partnership like this one. And that was a Maven Wave founder. And that's the story behind the Google partnership. And they did hire him. And of course, we've done a lot of work with Google ever since. We've grown largely with Google, and we've been a great delivery arm for them. We have a very close relationship to them. I love their technology. I get really good access to it, and it's just been a really wonderful partnership. And it's a great platform. It really is.
Yeah, great story. Great story. Although I wouldn't encourage your everyday data scientist to interview in teams. May not go as well as this.
Yeah.
So then, looking at your role now, look, you gave the introduction of how you balance being hands-on and also at the senior leadership level, but what do you love most about your job? As you have such an impact on across all the clients, what are the bits that you enjoy most?
I love waking up in the morning and listening to my teams and stand-ups, and I love to see. I don't know. I've just really become more of a coach mindset lately, where I feel like I've gotten to a place myself where I'm obviously comfortable and I've done well. But now it's like to see someone come up through the ranks and not just, get promoted. I mean, that's important, I guess. But what's really important is that they find what they're good at, what they love, and they contribute to the greater, mission, and share that information with someone else. So I have these people that I've mentored, or even people aside me that I've seen them make great progress in their progression as employees, as contractors, if they will, or taking all these other roles, and really finding a sweet spot and doing it better than ever expected for them, or ever I expected from them. And I don't know, I just enjoy watching that. I mean, I guess I'm kind of voyeuristic that way, but I enjoy watching people really, find their spot and go from not knowing where they can contribute to just being dead on and just delivering it every time and just rocking it.
So the language you're using here is not your typical language that you would expect from a managed consultancy. You're talking about growth, leadership, support, coaching, guidance. Mm-hmm. And obviously it ties into how you guys have been so successful and continue to do so, is the environment that you've built. And the very first thing you led with was people. Can you talk about, from your time joining, how the business has evolved, how it's grown, and where you expect it to be in the next even 18 to 24 months?
Well, I think when so it kind of led off from where I started in the Deloitte world, where we were trying to marry some of the complex ecosystems that sit under the hood there, which are some of the best in the world, and trying to marry those with things like a digital revolution, or a movement to the cloud, or ML being really serving its purpose, and the hype that's behind it. And I kind of same situation where when I walked in, there was a lot of clients that were toe dipping, or they were, and I got this term from Janet, the CEO of Deloitte, either toe dipping or just diving head in. And the toe dippers, they weren't invested enough to really get access to the data and everything to make it work. And the people that were diving head in, they were expecting the entire world. It's like, okay, we have AI and ML now, let's solve all of our problems. Why aren't they solved yet? And what I found is that people are becoming more familiar with where the sweet spots are in the use cases of ML, and the language has become more fluent, and people are realizing, yes, I can solve that problem with AI and ML, and I do understand prediction better, and I do know that I can enable my, all sorts of operations. And people, we're seeing use cases come up like document understanding that are, we're taking in documents and converting them, and we're seeing use cases around contact center AI, and people kind of know what that is. I'm going to, do analysis of your contact center, and and it's just becoming more. People are becoming more aware of what it is, and they're buying better. And that's the big thing, is the people are coming to us and they're really understanding what they're getting, and we're able to deliver better then.
And again, as you check out Maven Wave and you understand the impact, you guys work across multiple industries and ranging in clients. Mm-hmm. Is there a particular recent example that you could give us where you impacted a client? Just anything from a specific problem that they needed and your approach to delivering and subsequent outcome?
Well, I think sometimes what data science answers is the unknown that sits within some dark data that sits inside some server somewhere for a lot of organizations. And this one particular client, I was thinking of a media company, and it's one of the biggest news companies in the world, and they had these digital archives that they kept getting in trouble for using the wrong permissions, and they're just kind of a big mess, and they hadn't really modernized that. So we took the 64 terabytes, whatever, of images that were pretty basically black box, and put them in the cloud. And while doing so, we also organized them by actually opening up the images using AI and machine learning, identifying themes and objects in them, color patterns. We started taking some of the text that was associated with it and doing analysis on the text. And I think they walked away with a really good understanding of what they have. But they also had some functional software to sit there to find things quicker and to use that AI to just be more organized and deliver better quality. And I like it because it's an example of something coming to the age of a modernization, where you have something that's an industry that's very old, and you all of a sudden you flip on the switch for new technology and it just delivers. So that's a good example, I think.
Yeah, very much so. I'm sure it was interesting to see all of the various archive information that could come up from that.
Sure.
I want to get your take on the growth plans. You obviously sit at the highest level within the organization, and when you look at the various services that you offer, there's a high demand for various skill set. So yeah, as you guys grow and you continue to stay on the cutting edge of technology, even as recent as last month, the announcement of the partnership with Snowflake, what do you see as any new ventures for you guys? Is there anything of interest that you identify as an evolution of Maven Wave, or is it just based on the people, bringing in good people, and that will allow you to inevitably service various needs across clients?
Definitely the people aspect and the product aspect. So the people aspect, what we're finding as we grow is two different paths. There's one where, okay, we need someone who's more specialized in a particular area, needs to be the expert. And then there's also those who, like I said earlier, the digital storytelling, and they can manage, they have soft skills as well as data science skills. So there's kind of those two angles to it. On the level of delivering again and again on products or things like that, we're not a product company, but we're a delivery company. You mentioned Snowflake, and we're experts in some areas like that, but BigQuery as well, which is more the native version of Google. And Atos had bought Maven Wave earlier this year, and it's a large organization. It opens up a lot of doors for us, and it's a great relationship, and we still act independently. But figuring out how we're going to interplay with some of that history that they have there. I always use the analogy, when you walk down the street, you always have one foot in the past and one foot in the future. Or if you have both in the past, then you're gonna fall on your face, and if you have both in the future, you're gonna fall on your back. And I don't usually turn back, but I'll do that because it's a podcast. Yeah. So yeah, I think that progression is very important, and we are a people culture thing, and we're maintaining that culture too. We got to figure out how to do that. During lockdown too, we've moved. We were very well prepared to be digital already, but still trying to figure out how to have happy hour virtually on a Friday afternoon is tricky. So,
Brian, on a final note, look, you've managed to navigate this industry, putting yourself in a head of data science role, an MD, having worked for the majority of it, client facing, which has exposed you to various needs at all times. As you now play a part in helping the organization grow out the next phase of talent, you've talked a lot about coaching, guidance, and watching individuals achieve what they want. If you were speaking to the next generation, whether academics who are just getting their foot into the profession, or individuals who have a different background, whether it's mathematics, technical, or any of the sciences, who want to get into this venture, what advice or guidance could you offer those people who are just starting out and are looking to hone their skills and looking at an innovative consulting place like you guys? What makes you guys a good place to be?
Well, I mean, we have resources available for like minds. So in our organization, we've just reached, I think, a large enough size where you can find someone that shares interest in some domain. I believe that everything's built kind of like one brick at a time, where, if you are coming from a mathematical or physics background and you want to get into machine learning, the reality is that you can build on the knowledge that you already have, and you can cultivate that while learning new things. I think in my space, I expect everyone to continue doing reading. I think that I expect people to keep up to date with new technology, try things, don't be scared to try new things. And I think it'll just come, your passion will drive you, and you'll come to a place where you achieve what you're looking to set. You got to set those goals, and you got to make them high, but you got to work one day at a time to make them occur.
Brian, that's a great way to finish what has been a thoroughly enjoyable podcast. Brian, thank you so much for your time. This has been incredibly informative. We look forward to watching Maven Wave continue to break new ground. And thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Alldus offer an exec search program. Alldus can help you discover how data science and AI can transform your company. With our unrivaled network of C-suite executives and senior AI professionals, we offer retained search services across the US and Europe. Get the Alldus advantage. Become a member of the Alldus community and enjoy some of the following: AI meetups. Once a month, our community gathers to listen to some of the leading experts in the world of data science and AI. Our speakers come from all over the world, including Dublin, Boston, and Frankfurt. We also have our AI mentors. Our experts will provide mentoring to Alldus members. And don't forget our AI in Action podcast. Each week we have guests from all over the world talking us through their education, career, and more. Become an Alldus member and get the Alldus advantage. For more information and to sign up for our newsletter, log on to www.alldus.com. That's www.alldus.com. Alldus International, empowering through AI.